There are a great deal of lessons learned from the first film. I have to just trust my own inner judgmental fanboy to know that I'm gonna work as hard as I can to make sure that we're telling a story that is important for Spider-Man fans and a general audience that want to be entertained and want to be thrilled.
I discovered how important it was to be protective of the iconography of Spider-Man.
There's a different vibe entirely, I think, on set.
We knew going into this that we were biting off the most ambitious Spider-Man story you could ever tell.
It was the largest film ever to be made in the state of New York.
I want to have it all.
This time we just spent a lot more time developing the script.
A script that is so huge, entertaining, funny, dramatic, outrageous, subtle.
It's the full package.
Everybody was really doing everything they could to honor the story and to feel that this version of Spider-Man has actually taken the Spider-Verse to a totally new place.
I like to see characters crack open in terms of joy, in terms of sorrow. I want to test the emotional capacity of my actors and of my characters, and I think this movie does that.
Finally. Hey, how you doing? I hope you're doing well.
Spidey!
Listen, this is a long time coming. I think I made the first Marc Webb Spidey deep dive almost 5 years ago. Holy fucking shit, 5 years.
Oh, please!
If you are anywhere in my age range, mid-20s, feeling like you're turning 60 with that diseased goblin blood boiling up inside,
The Osborn curse,
then you probably, much like Uncle HiTop, were, no exaggeration, so unapologetically, shamelessly hyped for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I remember watching all the 7 Webhead videos. I remember freaking out when he got the interview with the cast and crew. I remember ditching my friends to go read comicbookmovie.com's live blog as they described the Comic-Con teaser that never released to the public. I have such nostalgia for that time, and I'm sure you do too. And if you did, then you probably also relate to the sense of utter, immeasurable disappointment when you finally saw the movie. If you were insane like me, you may have seen it multiple times in the theater just to try to understand why you felt so disappointed, understand why, how The Amazing Spider-Man 2 felt so off in the sense that it did not really feel like a direct sequel to the first film. Sure, the faces were the same, the director was the same, sure, there were tons of missing scenes just like the original that were in the trailer you watched 40 times but were not in the film.
Isn't that the question of the day?
But tonally, aesthetically, it could not have been more different. Gone was James Horner's classical, almost whimsical at times, melancholic score. Now Hans Zimmer had created an entirely new musical identity for Andrew Spidey. Gone was the digital clean cinematography in favor of the ultra-vibrant, ultra-kinetic, excessive film look. Gone was the mostly serious tone, the undeniable angst, in favor of a mixed match of ever-changing tones, melodrama, romance, now with a dash of camp that felt far more like Joel Schumacher than Sam Raimi. In so many ways, perhaps you remember it this way too. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 felt like the rare occurrence where a direct sequel feels much more like a total revamp. A revamp that brought in so many cool and creative technical ideas about how to translate the world of Peter Parker, creating perhaps the best looking Spider-Man movie that still has yet to be topped in terms of scale. One that has this beating heart, the youthful and all too alive energy that feels on the surface so very perfect. And yet a revamp that showed us everything cynical, everything hollow about the way Sony treats and continues to treat the world of our favorite wall crawler. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a beautiful, often stunning mess. One where you cannot simply absolve the creatives and blame studio interference, but at the same time is probably the Spider-Man movie, hell, superhero movie with the most notable publicly known instances of deleted, rearranged scenes, characters, and ideas that would have fundamentally changed the narrative. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is an often misguided mess with glimpses of soul and truth fighting so desperately to escape past the blinding, flashing neon lights of Electro in order to be seen. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is so hard to talk about because I've spent a decade trying to love this movie, but can never really get there in the way I can with Marc Webb's first swing. It's hard to talk about because long before I became infamous for a silly little video about a silly $200 million movie,
Spider-Man Homecoming is
a menace to the entire city!
Sick? The Amazing Spider-Man 2 popped my broke me cherry. Writing this video is like writing a very hyper-fixated, definitely creepy letter to the first love who broke my heart. But here goes. Dear TASM 2, you up? Let's talk. But before we get into it, you know how it's revealed that the Parker bloodline, the Parker DNA, is the only bloodline capable of accepting the spider's bite, the gift and curse? Well, that had me wondering, who the hell am I? Which is why I'm happy to be partnering with the sponsor of today's video, MyHeritage. MyHeritage is a leading global family history and DNA service that makes exploring your history easier than ever, which works great for me since I frankly don't know shit about my roots, so this was a fun experience at a very affordable price starting at just 19 bucks. I got sent the DNA testing kit, did a simple 2-minute cheek swab, sent it back to them, and a few weeks went by as I anxiously anticipated finding out if I was an alien sent from a doomed planet. Here's my genuine reaction to the results. Alright, we're about to see. I'm 38.5% Scottish and Welsh, which explains a lot. 19.4% Irish, 16% English, 7.4% German. This is fun, though. Outside my core family tree, I thought I was alone, but apparently my DNA matches that of over 16,000 people all across the globe, and if I ever wanted to, MyHeritage has an internal messaging system that makes it easy for us to connect. They cover more regions than any other test, have 39 billion historical records available, and have crazy features like photo repair and enhancement, ancient origins, which can trace your DNA back up to 10,000 years. You can even explore the traits baked into your DNA that help explain part of why you are who you are. One of my favorite things about them is that they have a strict privacy policy to never sell or license your genetic data, so I can rest easy knowing there won't be a HiTop clone saga anytime soon. So what are you waiting for? Scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Use code TOP19 to get your kit for just 19 bucks, plus a 30-day free trial, free shipping, the Ancient Origins feature, and so much more. Thanks, guys. You know, before we get started, it's telling that Marc Webb is absent from the DVD commentary. Instead, we are treated to the voice of God.
I'm Avi Arad. I'm a producer on the movie.
Really, Avi was in charge the entire time. Avi knows all, right?
We open The Amazing Spider-Man 2 on the innards of a watch, gears turning, and I love that idea. The idea that the first shot of your movie is a summation of what the story is going to be about. Marc Webb mentioned that on the first film, Alvin Sargent taught him that.
The opening of a movie should be a metaphor for the movie itself.
There is only one big problem. Alvin Sargent played no part in writing The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Why is that a problem? Why am I bringing this up so early? Bear with me here. You might not care right now, but I promise when I'm done, you might just care. Alvin Sargent was married to Laura Ziskin. Laura was a longtime key producer and pioneer throughout the entire Spider-Man franchise, all the way from Sam's first film to Mark's. If you have ever listened to her talk and listened to those who worked with her speak about her, you can infer that she was a major reason those films had the heart and soul they did.
I see Laura and Sam as pretty much partners. She's very involved with the story and the characters and all that.
Laura Ziskin sadly passed away in 2011, which meant that the first Amazing Spider-Man film would be the last time Laura or her husband, Alvin, would be involved with Spider-Man. Alvin had done passes on each and every single Spider-Man screenplay. He's the one responsible for moments like this.
I believe there's a hero in all of us.
And probably so many more of the heartfelt human moments that make all 4 of those movies feel more like human dramas than superhero spectacles. It's important you know this up front because I think you can divide the era of Spider-Man films into 2 distinct ones. The Laura Ziskin and Alvin Sargent era, and the not Laura Ziskin and Alvin Sargent era. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was written by none of the writers of the first Amazing Spider-Man. James Vanderbilt, Steve Kloves, and Alvin Sargent did not return for the sequel. Instead, we have a screenplay by Alex Kurtzman, Roberto Orci, and Jeff Pinkner. And let me be clear here, you can never really judge a screenplay by the final film because that screenplay goes through an entire gazillion-dollar machine before we see or hear a word of it. That said,
Bones, get that thing off my face.
I am kind of a loser.
I am directly below.
This long-winded ramble is to say, yes, opening on the gears of a spinning clock is a nice cool summation of the movie's theme. It could be something subtle, something meaningful, like in the first movie where the first line is a metatextual wink at the audience.
Ready or not, here I come.
But beyond that, more so, it's a boy searching for his father in a game of hide and seek, a young boy who will grow into a young man, always looking, always searching for that father figure that he will continue to lose. In the first movie, that metaphor is clear if you're looking for it, but it's never too on the nose. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, it's simply not enough to have a visual shot of a fast-ticking clock, not enough to have the gears that resemble the hands of fate be the first image we see. Now we must have Richard Parker directly, dramatically take a beat and look directly into the camera, into our eyes, and tell us the theme of the movie.
I always thought that I'd have more time.
Hey, Uncle Jimmy, I wonder if this movie is about time.
Time.
Yes, we should have time.
I just figured it was time. You know? Time.
We are then subjected to a very pretty and clearly ultra expensive, I mean look at this shit, action bit where we see the maybe possible death of the Parkers. I feel like the producers, the new writers, were the only people interested in seeing more of the Richard Parker 00 fucko plotline.
The questions were raised but never answered, so our first instinct was we needed the answer to those questions.
A plotline that the first film intentionally trimmed down and almost entirely out. You know why they probably did that? Because you can blast me in the comments here. Making Peter Parker's parents super spies, SHIELD agents, or have any connection to the larger Marvel universe is frankly dumb. It's dumb in the movies, it's dumb in the comic books, it's, you know what, I'm not gonna say dumb, because if you find gravitas in it, that's wonderful, but to me, I have always found it fucking pointless. The story of Spider-Man already features the two greatest parental figures and the all-time greatest loss of a father, and to feel the need to add even more loss to that, to try and actively add relevance and world building to something that does not need it, has always rubbed me the wrong way. Even the first film was somewhat aware of this, I think, and if you ask me, by the end of that first movie, to Peter, it did not matter why they died in that plane crash. Peter had found the strength to let that wound lie, start to allow that wound to heal, and stop obsessing over the parents he never had. Stop focusing on the many unresolved things in his life and be present and protective of the loved ones that were still living.
You've been living with so many unresolved things. Well, take it from an old man. Those things send us down a road. They make us who we are.
So to open this movie with a 7-minute sequence entirely focused on a plot line and people, parents that we, the audience, were not emotionally invested in is definitely a choice. Especially considering you could cut out that entire sequence so easily. I mean, the waste of money would be astronomical, but the movie has no problem cutting out moments, characters, and actors that clearly cost a ton, but whatever. Point is, they should have opened with this. This opening has always fucking infuriated me. It fills me with a genuine mechanized rhinoceros rage that you cannot possibly imagine for 3 simple reasons. 1, look at this shit. Look at the color, the film grain, the vibrancy. Every Spider-Man movie should be shot in film or use film emulation to look like it was shot in film because holy hairy Ozballs, look at this raw footage. 2, look at this shit. Look at the beautiful artistry of the CG artists. Look at the micro wrinkles, the wind's effect on every fiber of the costume. The fact the costume doesn't feel like skin. The fact that Spider-Man doesn't look like a Gumby figure bouncing around weightless environments. Look how far we've fallen with the fetishization of nanotech and billionaire ideation. 3, look at this shit. Look at the practicality, look at the stunt work, the people risking their spines so we can smile, the old school influence of Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton copying direct gags that still make you gasp and wonder how exactly these madmen performed and filmed the death-defying. Insanity, man. Fucking inspiring insanity. Mark wanted to take the practical stunt work he and stunt coordinator Andy Armstrong did in the first film, the holy shit, that guy's really swinging on a Webb gag from movie 1 and up the ante tenfold. That said, Webb admitted that on Amazing 1, he really tried to avoid heavy VFX use altogether, especially for the swinging, for the Spider-Man action as much as possible. Not because it hadn't looked good in the past, but because his first Spider-Man movie was his second fucking feature film, so of course he was scared he wouldn't know how to use it correctly.
The first time around, I felt nervous about doing all the visual effects. My compass was realism. There were some successes with that, there were some failures with that. I think this time around, I think I knew a lot more about visual effects, about that process. I had more confidence in what would work and what wouldn't.
Clearly, Marky Boy went to school because the blending here is incredible. The high-flying scale that could only be achieved with practical camera moves and VFX artistry is up there with Raimi's swinging, truly. Listen, you guys know what comparison I want to make and how I want to say, wow, I wonder if the people who made lose sleep over the fact they consistently visually nerfed and got mogged again and again by the most hated Spider-Man movie. You know what I want to say, but I won't because I don't want to get a bomb sent to my house by an underdeveloped 13-year-old. But come on now, Marc Webb will always catch too many strays for his Spider-Man movies, but I will stand by and always scream from the mountaintop that despite popular opinion, he had the sauce. And it's clear to me right off the bat that he maybe listened too much to the criticism of the first film.
The mistakes I made the first time around, I think about the suit, for example. I wanted the suit to be made by hand. I wanted it to feel tactile. I wanted it to feel something that a kid could make. But I think we strayed too far from what people expected of that suit.
I'm one of the few people who liked Peter's homemade basketball man suit, genuinely. I like the yellow lenses, I like the unique logo, I like how different it felt. And it needed to be different, so very different from Raimi's costume, which defined a generation. That said, I gotta say, to this day, This right here is my favorite live-action superhero costume ever. The texture, the tone of the red, the eyes, the shape of the face shell. It looks like it feels so soft to touch, professionally done, but still there's a sense that Peter could have made this himself. It's perfect. Deborah Lynn Scott should be the costume designer every single Kate movie director calls. I would make love in it. And to it.
Right up in the crotch a little bit.
The costume ain't the only thing that feels closer to what fans expect from a Spidey movie. The color palette, just how blue the sky is, how full of life and pop every single frame is. Amazing 2 was shot by my main man, Dan Lens Flare Mindel, and as opposed to the first movie, Dan and Mark wanted to shoot on film, not digital, because
I had a hard time moving the cameras around the way I like to. This time around, we returned to shooting on film, being as spontaneous as I was on this movie, especially working with Andrew and Emma in the spirit of the movie, which has this sort of spontaneity and an improvisational quality to the acting. You want the cameras to be able to react to that.
And the team also wanted to shoot entirely in New York, as opposed to turning a Universal backlot into New York. And the difference is clear, man. The city feels so open, not like they have to avoid shooting a certain direction because the set ends at a certain point. The world feels so real, every car crash or pedestrian staring at the action. From the open roads of Rochester to the trash-filled alleyway coked up Alexei drives down, it's such a step up in terms of scale, in terms of energy. You almost feel like you are directly in the headspace of Peter, manic, no time to slow down, putting on a good show, 1,000 things in the mind, quips and jokes and Bugs Bunny gags to hide the guilt inside. It's fucking awesome. I know Homecoming's entire thing was treating Spidey like a grounded everyday kid in New York, but to me, it's moments like Peter saving a bus full of people from crashing into a father and daughter, knowing their language and giving Dad a reassuring pat on the shoulder that feel directly ripped off the page, that make me believe that on a sunny summer day in NYC, there's maybe a chance I bump into Spider-Man. To me, this opening sequence is so perfectly Spider-Man that I think even 20 years from now, we will be going back and looking to these 10 minutes as the blueprint for how to adapt our beloved webhead. I'm mentioning all this now because the problem with this movie, it ain't the look, it ain't the craft, it ain't the fucking filmmaking. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 set out to be the biggest Spider-Man movie ever, and from a technical standpoint, it very well may still be. There is so much I want to talk about here, but I just recommend you track down the making of documentary and special features because it's truly awe-inspiring to see how much craftsmanship went into each and every frame of this movie. There is such a commitment to doing everything as much as humanly possible in camera, from building these insane rigs where the room spins around Andrew Garfield as he tries to take off his costume, to having 3 Spider-Men, one of them being Andrew himself, hiding around on a moving truck, popping out at the perfect time just so they can avoid cutting and have the perfect in-camera gag that is so funny and so Spidey, to recreating a highly detailed set of Times Square in a Long Island parking lot since they could not destroy and damage the actual Times Square.
The idea of building Times Square was so absurd to me, but nobody really batted an eye, and I guess that's the benefit of having a big budget. And I kept on waiting for somebody to be like, there's a way better way to do this, but nobody ever did that.
A set and sequence that is so massive, filled with such insane wire work, practical explosions, and in-camera iconography that if you just so happen to be passing by and saw this shit, you might think you either had some whack acid or Spider-Man is actually there flipping cop cars and fighting Electro. It's so cool. You know what's crazy? A few blocks down from that parking lot lies another parking lot. A parking lot where they built another one of my favorite set pieces in a superhero movie.
We built a 150-foot segment or a run or a little runway we used over and over again throughout the sequence to shoot all the practical elements. Part of the design process, we were trying to think of what about this environment would employ Spider-Man's abilities, so we wanted to put it up in the air and use altitude as part of the battlefield.
I love that mentality. So many times the set design and set pieces are more so about the scale of the location, alien planet, the center of the city. They often feel so uninspired, and this easily could be. Oh boy, a power plant. How original. But this is fucking proof it's all about the execution, all about planning, designing, building that location so it's perfectly suited for the specific hero.
It's like designing a ballet. I mean, that sounds ridiculous to say, but there's a confrontation of really unique abilities. This guy, Electro, who can jump through space and reappear and dematerialize, and having Spider-Man having to fight that. How to play with that imagery and how to exploit the interesting visual opportunities. It was so much fun to do. It was one of the more fun sequences I've ever done.
And of course, I can't not mention the clock tower set. Real working, spinning gears, some of them rubber so the actors don't fucking chop their foots off. But come on, dude, look at this shit. Even the outtakes of Dane Dehaan sweating his ass off or going goblin mode on Spidey are stunning to look at. There's so much life in the frame. There's so much life to all of it. The dedication, the manpower it must have taken to pull off any of the 1,000 little details that sadly would probably be done entirely in post nowadays. Lining Jamie Foxx's hoodie with a ton of micro LEDs so the camera could pick up the blue light of his electricity. The crew operated goblin glider rigs so his swooping movement never felt phony. Andrew Garfield and his stunt team's dedication to making sure Spidey's movement was consistent no matter who was wearing the costume, who was doing the flip, the swing, the crawl. To this day, I feel like Mark and Andrew's Spider-Man, by a long shot, man, punches, kicks, dodges, and thwips in a style that feels ripped straight from the comics. Those details are the art, man, and it's always a shame when that stuff goes overlooked. All $200+ million movies should aim to look like this, look half as good as this, aim to employ the best artists in their field and let them use that absurd amount of cash to create, build, and craft a world that we'd love, we'd be lucky to breathe in. The problem with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was never the filmmaking. The problem, sadly, was something that no amount of technical artistry can cover up. The problem is with the characters. No! And what better character to start with than Peter Benjamin I really want this haircut Parker? This might be a hot take, but it's one I've kept since high school. I'm not sure if it's the new writers, I'm not sure if it's because they cut out so many of the smaller moments that might result in a more well-rounded human being, but to me, this Peter feels so vastly different to the one in Mark's first film. I get that he's supposed to be more confident, more cocky as Spidey, but to me, Peter here, not even Spider-Man, too often feels like, frankly, an ass. And not the kind of Ditko angst that defines so much of his character in movie 1, but the generic kind of douchebag. And look, it's one thing to try and evolve the tone into something more classically Spider-Man, but oftentimes it feels like Peter, even if Andrew Garfield tries his damnedest to always exude empathy, is being written by writers who did not understand the character in the first movie, or at least forgot the last 20 minutes of that movie. It's so weird to start your highly anticipated sequel and within 10 minutes show us that Pete is no longer the calmer, more mature, and self-sacrificing young man he was at the end of the first movie, which was a very intentional and subtle choice that I loved, the choice to make him be more still, more stoic, less manic.
This scene was written by the wonderful Alvin Sargent. This is where you can see Andrew's performance has become much more focused. His physicality has become much more focused. He's not moving around nearly as much as he was, and I think there's a level of control, and you sense that this kid has become a man in the last couple hours, and she's heartbroken by it. She's heartbroken by his austerity.
And of course, the final lines of The Amazing Spider-Man 1 hinted at the fact that there will always be a very human desire within him to be with the one he loves, to have a connection with his best and only friend.
Yeah, but those are the best kind.
Even with that, there was a strength to Andrew's Peter at the end. His performance, the direction, it felt like all the loss in his life left a real lasting impact. Not just short-term grief, but the start of an everlasting growth. Sadly, within 10 minutes of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, we are cued into the fact that maybe that growth was short-lived. Not only is he back to showboating, the very thing his uncle scorned him for.
I don't care about the backboard. Did you humiliate that boy?
Yeah, I did. This guy deserved it.
Did he?
Yeah.
If so, I guess you must feel pretty good about yourself now, right?
I feel like Martin Sheen's Uncle Ben would beat his ass for wearing fucking shorts and a Thrasher t-shirt to his graduation, but whatever, man. Not only is he back to focusing on and longing for his dead parents.
I wish your uncle could have been here.
And my folks.
But perhaps the most poorly executed choice the film makes is having Pete very much ignore Captain Stacy's dying wish. And listen, it's a very human thing to want to be with Gwen Stacy, and like I've said, I don't mind the fact that he is tempted. I don't mind the fact that clearly they have been doing this on and off again thing every time the guilt gets to be too much for Peter. What I do mind is the execution. Captain Stacy's ghost just comes across as goofy, an efficient way to fast track the narrative so they can have Peter and Gwen be a couple in the opening, only to break up 18 minutes into the movie. I know they are going for this thing about time. and how we never have, never will have enough of it. I know why they are thematically making the choices that they are, but I'd much rather have had Peter and Gwen not be together at the start, and throughout the narrative have Peter succumb to his desire, his need to not be alone, a need which overpowers the guilt of breaking his promise, a need we all relate to, and of course a need which inevitably tragically gets her killed. Or you could have them be together the entire movie and have the guilt be a constant thing Peter is dealing with, not just 2 glimpses of Ghost Dad, but a consistent gut-wrenching feeling that haunts Peter. The idea always there in the back of his head that being with the one he loves so deeply is actually the wrong thing, not for him, but for her, even if it feels so very right. Then Gwen's loss would be a direct consequence, casualty of Peter choosing happiness for himself. I don't know, man, I almost respect the balls for opening the sequel and going against everything narratively, stylistically you set up in the first movie, but going against it emotionally is where that doesn't quite work for me. It's a bold move undoing the crucial choice your lead hero made at the end of his first outing.
I can't see you anymore. I can't.
And then making that undoing not have all that much power because they break up so fast anyway.
I break up with you.
And I'm fine with Peter's ego being a thing. I would be fine if they actually leaned into the fact that his arrogance is a character flaw. I love prideful dickbag Peter having to relearn humility in Raimi 3, but the problem here is I don't think the movie has a problem with how he's showing off. I think the movie thinks he's cool when he indirectly carelessly fucks up this taxi cab. There goes that man's paycheck.
It's Spider-Man!
Hey, remember when Peter listened to Coldplay and the Shins? Now he listens to Philip Phillips. Remember when he built his costume and web shooters all by himself? Now he listens to the Steve Aoki remix of Pursuit of Happiness while watching YouTube videos on electricity.
Explode!
I have to believe this was a fucking studio note to have the YouTube video be spoon-feeding the audience because I don't see a laptop in this wide shot. Remember when he helped renowned scientist and Dr. Curtis Connors crack the formula for limb regeneration that said renowned scientist and doctor spent his life trying to perfect but could not without Peter? Now, the only way he solves the mystery of his parents is having a crash out and doing a fucking Google search. So many times, Peter doesn't feel like the same character, a character I fell in love with back in the day. Was it the fact that the studio wanted him to be even cooler, even sexier? Was it the new writers not quite understanding the tone and voice of the first movie? Or was it the fact they cut out and down so much of this movie to keep it under 2.5 hours? I mean, take a look at this deleted moment. Just this simple, beautiful 20 seconds of him being overwhelmed with emotion, reflecting on how he's losing everything. He's not dropping exposition, he's not performing, he's alone. And we get to slow down, take a break from the fast-paced mania and see just how broken Peter is at this point. It's moments like these to see the crack in the indifferent persona that would allow us to understand the weight he's carrying, hiding behind the youthful energy. It not only adds to our empathy for him, it allows us to see, without words, a raw vulnerability. But nah, let's cut that out so we can have Dr. Kafka act like a fucking buffoon.
I will get results.
I mean, in this extended deleted sequence, you actually see Peter's intelligence, his curiosity. He feels like that genius, passionate science dork from the first movie.
That's amazing joint flexibility. Like, what are you using a servo motor?
No, it's electrically conductive nanofibers.
But nah, that would take too long. So instead... And it's hard because there are so many little details about Peter in this movie that I do love. I love that Mark and company never lose the working class elements of Aunt May and Uncle Ben.
I know the first thing your Uncle Ben would say.
Yeah, I know too.
Yeah.
You better hurry up. Party's over.
No.
You gotta get a job.
I love the fact that May herself is working 2 jobs but hiding it, hiding the reality that she's so overworked and can barely get by without Ben. The fact that she's so sick of this damn douchebag mentioning his parents who left him, who left her nothing.
I was the one who wiped your nose and made you brush your teeth and do your homework and washed your dirty underwear. Me, your stupid, non-scientific aunt who doesn't know how to make ends meet, who has to take nursing classes with 22-year-old kids so I can pay for you to go to college. And I don't know how to do this without Ben. I don't know how. And you're dreaming about your perfect father who was never here. You're my boy. As far as I'm concerned, you're my boy.
The bones, they're there, man. That scene is wonderful. My favorite in the movie because it feels authentic. The same kind of authenticity that has made me defend Mark's first film for years.
I'm your boy. You're my everything. You're enough. I love you so much.
It's so weird because in so many ways, this movie feels, looks, breathes like the perfect Spider-Man adaptation. From the tiniest of details like him shoving his costume into a backpack, to the way he protects, inspires, and walks a younger version of himself home as the sun sets. In fucking theory, I even love the breakneck pace that often feels like an issue of a comic. Peter zip slams and stumbles his way in and out of scenes, forever cursed with the inability to stop time, to stop change, to stop death. But that clear love and identity, those glimmers of authenticity, are all too lacking in the writing, or at least what the hacked-together final cut of the movie presents to us. I am biased because I, even with the clear studio interference and problems, really do think Marc Webb's first Amazing Spider-Man set the stage for a Peter Parker I would have loved to see grow and change over the course of the next decade. I am biased, of course I am, because to me, the modern sensibility of the first film's script, trying to appeal to the skateboarders and 2012 emo boys like myself, never took away from the elegance and poetry of the Spider-Man story. Here, and like I keep saying, I don't think it's coincidence that this is the first Spider-Man film not to have Alvin Sargent pass of the script. Characters, they speak their themes, they speak their motives, and sometimes that's all they do. It's not enough for Jamie, Jerry Curl, Jimmy Carrey, Max Dillon to clearly be an unseen, undervalued, emotionally stunted man. He has to tell us.
Yeah, well, most people don't notice other people.
Guy was invisible.
Let's talk about him for a second, alright? Don't you know? I don't fucking know. I don't know.
Electro. You remember my name?
The big question I have is why?
Spidey.
Why is Electro in the movie? How does he fit thematically with anything Peter is going through?
We knew we wanted to tell a slow burn origin story about the Green Goblin. And so we knew that the movie would need other villains to support it, other antagonists for Peter/Spider-Man to be dealing with as we were watching the journey of Harry becoming the Green Goblin.
Okay, sure, that makes sense, but also I'd much rather have that slow burn Harry Goblin origin story take center stage than to have a character that actively detracts from the emotional gravitas the movie is aiming for. And look, I get it, there was no way the studio would ever go for another Spider-Man movie where Green Goblin, Harry, or Norman was the main threat. They most definitely were trying to avoid having yet another Spider-Man movie where the three central characters are Peter, Harry, and the girl next door.
The woman I've loved since before I even liked girls.
The girl who sat next to him in class. It makes sense, but honestly, you could cut him from the movie and nothing would really change. Harry is dying, Peter's life is passing him by as he's stuck in the past, while Gwen is moving forward, unaware that her time is almost up. The story is about the three of them. They are directly dealing with the theme, the threat of time. And no matter how much Electro they add, he can't help but feel out of place. Marc Webb clearly was visually interested in Electro, which makes perfect sense. He's a character that's never been done in live action, a character that presents an entire new visual language for the franchise.
There was something different feeling about Electro. In terms of just the look of him, what you can do visually with that character, I thought the possibilities were really extraordinary. So I really leaned into that idea, and it ended up kind of working with the ideas that we were messing around with.
And the problem ain't the visuals. Of course the classic costume would have been fun, but I love how terrifying he looks, how haunted and scared he feels when he's hiding in the hoodie. The problem ain't the powers. I think his teleportation, his electric blasts that feel like aggressive outbursts Max has been holding in since childhood, that really works. The problem is the purpose. What does he do for Peter? How does he force Peter to change, to grow? I can see what they were trying to do, see how they were trying to...
Max Dillon is a character who has been ignored by the world. He's been left behind, and in a real way, he's a foil for Spider-Man, who's also been ignored and has been an underdog. But Jamie's Max, who's so pathetic at the beginning of the film and is so tightly wound, his character evolves in a darker way.
The problem with that is not the idea to make him the dark version of the direction Peter was heading down in the first film, the bullied becoming the bully, the nerd who got basketballs thrown at his head becoming the human basketball. That is a fine idea, a great one even, one that the new animated series did wonderfully.
You turned me into this!
The problem is, like I just talked about, Peter is kind of a fucking asshole for a huge chunk of this movie. Not the endearing kind of asshole, but the indifferent kind.
Yeah, I know it's me.
Who are you?
They could have, maybe they originally did, establish a mini arc of Peter's arrogance, Max's celebrity obsession and projection onto a guy who can barely keep his life together, but it doesn't really amount to anything. The Times Square scene looks so incredible and even has the bones to be meaningful, to say something, but it's almost like they can't decide how liable Pete should be for Max's turn to the dark side. So at the start of the scene, they have him act like such a little twerp.
What's your name again?
How could you forget me?
Oh, I do. I know it. Don't tell me.
It's Max.
Is it Max?
But then he cautiously tries to de-escalate the situation, stop the cops from shooting an unarmed, clearly terrified blue man.
I don't know what's going on with me.
I can see that. I believe you. I can see that. I can see you don't want to be here. I can see you're scared. I can see you don't know what's happening to you. I can see that you don't want to hurt anybody.
But instead of riding that tone, Spidey disappears so he can execute the perfect Looney Tunes gag where he throws on a fireman helmet while hosing Max into submission, and then proceeds to not have a single worry about what's going to happen to Max once he gets arrested.
It's a pleasure doing business with you.
Jail, institution, secret Oscorp lab where he's tortured. Don't matter, he's got Gwen and his parents' plotline to worry about. I wish they would have committed to at least making Peter's arrogance the reason why Max completely loses it, but they don't. Instead, they take the easy way. Because Max's character is so paper thin, his switch up, the fact he immediately turns on Spider-Man and calls him evil, not because he was being a dick, but because the news cameras and billboards start focusing on Peter instead of him, is genuinely laughable.
You're so selfish.
Dude, Max spends the whole scene muttering his internal struggle.
I just wanted everyone to see me.
The score tells us his internal struggle. And when he decides to go from sympathetic to villain mode, his cadence, his demeanor does a complete 180 in under 90 seconds. From scared, overwhelmed, insecure, to spouting Mr. Freeze puns.
It's my birthday. Now it's time for me to light my candles. All right, everyone. Chill.
Which I can forgive because Max is a dork, but then when we see him later, he has adopted the cool guy Jamie Foxx persona.
Be like a god to them.
I just don't know what they were thinking or trying to do with him. I wish I could tell you the deleted scenes with his mom, played by the brilliant Adrienne Lennox, who played Ben Urich's wife in Daredevil, added any weight, any depth, any pathos, but...
It's a special day today. Do you have anything special that you want to say to me on my special day?
The same thing I tell you every day. Where my cigarette?
The biggest problem with Electro is I truly don't think his presence has any effect on Peter at all. In fact, unlike every other Spider-Man movie, Peter does not try to save him after a certain point. He fries his ass to death. Or at least into a different multiverse, and then chuckles about it a second later.
I think we can still make your flight.
He's acting so callous and careless that one of No Way Home's best scenes is Andrew working overtime to show empathy to Max, empathy that he does not have here whatsoever.
Back to being a nobody.
You were never a nobody, Max.
Yes, I was. You didn't see me.
Here's a fun fact. You remember this guy from the post-credit scene, the guy who later became the obscure Spider-Man villain, the Gentleman? I'll let Marc Webb break the news to you.
There was an idea that maybe this would be the Electro character. But again, we shot it and it kind of emerged into some other situation. The Man in the Hat is now, we think of him as the Gentleman.
I would rather have had that. Genuinely, that guy had aura, and an older, gruffer voiced version of Electro, one that knew Kurt and Norman, one that knew Richard Parker, might actually fit better into this narrative. I would rather have so many of the scrapped ideas be here. I would rather have them included the stuff I know would work. Take, for instance, Mary Jane Watson. Do you remember how spineless the studio was back in 2014? Remember how a bunch of lard incel asses did not think Shailene Woodley was, quote, hot enough to play MJ? The irony being that when they were complaining behind the keyboard, they probably looked like Beavis and smelled worse than the permanent sweaty ass stain on their gaming chair that in a certain light vaguely resembles their AI girlfriend who was pre-programmed to do the impossible. Love them. Jesus, Alex, breathe, man, breathe. We talked about this. Remember the training.
I find that a primal scream is the only satisfying release.
Me personally, I think she would have made a great MJ, and I would kill to see those scenes. I wish they would release them at this point now more than ever, since every other day I see a nostalgic post for these movies. There was supposedly some great stuff in the script and great stuff that they shot, like Peter realizing she's being beat by her abusive, alcoholic father, so then he shows up as Spider-Man and humiliates and threatens him to lay off of her. You know, the stuff in Spider-Man stories that reflect very human and very real pain. You know, the stuff that Marc Webb excels at in both his Spidey movies. But nah, let's cut all that. Let's cut a genuinely sweet scene where you see Flash Thompson show Peter some love.
I love you. Wow. Peter.
I love you too.
Let's get rid of that. Anyways, here's a Richard Parker edit set to a royalty-free version of the James Bond theme.
Did you tell the boy?
Peter?
Did you tell the boy the truth about his father?
Be good.
Well, that's very
I always thought that I'd have more time.
Why are we surprised, though? I mean, this is the kind of movie where they are juggling so many different interests and plot threads that Peter literally stumbles onto his father's bag, only to have a brief flashback to his parents to remind us that they haunt him, only to throw the bag in the closet for 40 minutes until the movie wants to pick back up that plot thread. The kind of story where, after never once mentioning the fact that Peter even knew Harry Osborn, Pete sees a picture of him on the news, and that sets off yet another plot thread, introduces us to an estranged friendship that has no time to be properly established because the movie is spinning, flipping its plates at such a rapid speed, rapidly changing and altering where the franchise was supposed to go. I always thought that Peter's first genuine friendship was Gwen, and the only reason that they are now making Harry and Peter childhood best friends who grew apart is because they simply don't have time to build an authentic relationship between the two before things go sour. Apparently, according to the commentary, there was a scene that sounds rather lovely.
It was a cool scene. The scene was at the wake of Peter's parents. And Peter was this lonely child in this room of adults, and he sort of snuck off to his dad's study, and in walked Harry. They started playing chess, and it was a kind of a metaphor, and I can't remember the exact dialogue. It was this kind of lovely moment of these boys connecting and finding each other. They turn, and there's this sort of silhouetted man at the beginning of his degenerative disease in the doorway holding onto this cane. It was a pretty cool, sort of weird, creepy scene.
But I guess they don't have time for lovely things that make Spider-Man lovely. For a movie that is about time, its greatest problem is the lack of it. Here, in Harry's first scene, they have him give a monologue that directly states, almost like he's giving us, the viewer, a brief little character bio, the nature of his abusive relationship with Norman. This is the only scene with his father, and it's used because it has to be solely to spoon-feed us years of resentment and history.
You kicked me off to boarding school when I was 11.
What a way to take one of the most complex and tragic relationships in the mythos, a relationship that Marc Webb would and could absolutely crush, could absolutely showcase with care, and brush it all aside so they can drop exposition about poison blood.
The Osborn curse.
Osborn curse. It's not enough that Harry's character struggle in various media is trying to avoid the sins of his father, trying to avoid the metaphorical poison blood that he was born into, blood he cannot change no matter how much he wishes to. Of course, now it has to be literal. But yeah, this movie had somebody in the boardroom insist that Peter has to write out, "Do I have to lose you too?" on a photo of Gwen in case the audience was questioning whether or not he cares about her. So I ain't surprised in the slightest. It's still so disappointing though, even on rewatch all these years later, disappointing because Dane Dehaan was a perfect cast, the perfect actor to bring a new, more subdued and raw Harry to the big screen.
Dane is one of the sweetest people I've ever met, but has a visage, these piercing blue eyes that the camera just loves, and a brooding intensity that you simply can't look away from.
He's a deeply emotional actor and a very vulnerable actor and very raw.
It was just so exciting because it's such a full, dynamic, crazy arc of a character that wouldn't just be another stereotypical part in a big franchise movie, but is actually something with a lot of dimension and depth and something that I could really create a character from.
And I'm not just saying this because Dave is the only Franco these days, but I always thought that James's Harry was the weak link in the Raimi trilogy.
You're a hack!
I don't know if it's Franco's style of acting shoved into the melodramatic poetry of Sam's world, or if it's just me, but his Harry has always been the one character in the OG trilogy I could never fully connect with.
I have nothing left except Spider-Man.
So here we are with a young actor who fits perfectly into the tone Mark was going for, someone who actually feels young, someone whose eyes showcase vast unspoken mountains of pain, anger, and sadness. They tried to make Max a twisted mirror to Peter, but the obvious reflection is his lost brother. Both Peter and Harry have a giant hole in their hearts because they feel abandoned by their fathers. Fathers who too often acted like their research was their legacy and left behind two boys who felt like they were anything but gifts to the world. Of course, Harry feels far more rage because of this. Of course,
I know what it's like to be thrown away. Please, Max! I need you!
Because he did not have Uncle Ben. He did not have Aunt May. He had hired, employed maids, mentors, mothers to raise him. And some of the best moments of the movie allow that to shine through without ever spelling that out to us. The first scene of the two pals is where you can really feel Marc Webb was allowed to be Marc Webb. I love how restrained and uncomfortable Harry is at first, forcing himself into the very same shadows and dark corners of the ancient rustic walls of wealth his father once did. I love how Peter steps towards Harry's darkness, unafraid, entirely sincere, trying to get him to step out of it, to break the cycle.
You were so there for me when my parents... That's when I'm here for you.
And once Harry chooses to step towards Peter's light, their chemistry is off the charts.
You still blow dry your hair every morning?
One of my manservants holds the hair dryer, but I work the comb. At least I'm not completely helpless.
There he is. There he is.
I love how boyish they both feel during their walk and talk, how every line is full of laughter, smiles that are nearly contagious. Dane, Andrew, and Mark are lifting mountains to make these guys feel like estranged brothers, rekindling that connection that drew them to each other in the first place. And it's fucking tragic and should be considered one of the 7 deadly sins that we have to move on from these human moments to talk about super spy parents and Max fucking Dillon.
You remember my name?
Harry is the character that suffers the most from the reshoots, the rewrites, the deleted scenes. Harry's character is the one stuck with having a key monumental reveal to Peter be forced to be ADR'd over a phone call.
I'm dying, but I think you can help save my life.
What's left of his character and his relationship with Peter is literally 2 small scenes before their friendship comes to an end. The one where we see how buddy and brotherly they can be, and the one that was heavily reshot and cut to death where Harry pops his it, uncovers secret goblin files on a flash drive, and then starts to resent Peter for not immediately getting Spider-Man to donate his blood. Why in the world would you cut out the fact that Norman had been hiring people to spy on Peter ever since he was a child?
Isn't that the question of the day?
Why in the world would you cut out a line like this, a line that shows jealousy, insecurity, and a bit of desperate mania?
It's crazy, right? I mean, he spent more time watching you than me.
Why would you cut this context that shows us how Harry's biological death sentence is starting to get to him, making him act irrational, entirely in need?
I'm dying, but I think you can help save my life.
Wow, imagine that. Instead of a phone call, it's an actual fucking scene where, you get to see a human being, act. Why would you cut the emotional context that explains why Harry starts to think Peter is being less than truthful with him?
They ever tell you anything? I got nothing.
Why would you remove so much of his descent into becoming the Goblin, so much of the nuance? And I ain't talking about adding back in more Felicia Hardy moments. I'm talking about keeping the moments in which after he is transformed into the Goblin, he looks at his reflection with utter anguish, trying to find any trace of humanity left in his soul. And I love the idea, on paper, that Harry goes into the lowest parts of Oscorp demanding the cure, sure, to his blood disease, but also to his feelings of weakness, of powerlessness that his father's abandonment has given him. Peter once did the same, except he did not demand that cure. He went looking for answers, connection to Connors, to his father, and had the curse of the spider thrust upon him. Harry descended into hell, Peter rose to the sky, both trying to fill the voids that loss has left them with, both trying to cure the forever incurable. Even the very controversial goblin design resembles a devil. After all, Satan himself was a fallen angel abandoned by his father. It's all there in premise, in idea, but sadly barely existent in the final film. It's simple to me, man. Just cut down the parents' plotline. Cut out the fact that Richard was secretly a self-sacrificing hero that Oscorp threw the blame on. Cut the fact that Peter's super heroic, super smart, sometimes super spy father made sure that only his bloodline could get superpowers from getting bit by a spider. Cut that all out, man. Hell, I'd love it if it turned out that the government wasn't lying, that Richard was going to sell his research, that Richard...
He betrayed his best friend, all of us, for the money.
I love that because that would even better showcase why Harry is so mistrustful of Peter. His dad died because Peter's dad stole their research and bolted. Make Richard, make Peter's father a flawed man instead of ruining the everyman element of Spider-Man. Breathe, Alex. The training. Remember the training. By golly gee, I wish the movie had committed to developing Harry's story with grace, committed to going all into the epic tragedy of brothers who end up on opposing sides. What we are left with is another character whose transformation happens laughably fast. The way Harry switches up from empathetic guy who cannot believe that his father's company, his legacy is
You are experimenting on people in there!
to manipulating and using the very same people mere minutes later. The fact that less than 5 minutes ago, Harry was a sympathetic, tortured human being who was fearful for his life, and now he has gone into comic book supervillain mode.
Fairy godmother, it is time to grant me a wish.
You know, in general, the way characters start hating on Spider-Man here, starting the scene needing something, whether that's compassion, understanding, or magic blood, and ending the scene 2 minutes later by literally screaming lines like,
"You're a fraud, Spider-Man!"
It's sadly so messy. I mean, when Harry and Electro team up, there's this interaction that I always found odd.
I had a friend once. It didn't work out.
What exactly did Peter do that was so wrong in this cut of the film? In the eyes of Harry, I mean. Harry asked Peter to talk to Spider-Man, which, in the eyes of Harry, he does, even though it clearly makes Peter uncomfortable.
Talk to Peter?
Yeah. Later on, Goblin Harry says this.
When you said Spider-Man said no, you meant you said no.
Which, you know, never happened. And the solutions to these problems are crystal clear. I believe to streamline things and just make things more narratively powerful, I would have Peter feel so guilty, so out of his mind with 1,050 different emotional plights he's got going on, that he gives Harry his blood. I guess Harry needs to go to the basement so we can set up the Sinister Six and inject himself with the spider venom so Peter is not directly responsible for him becoming the Green Goblin. But my point is, why not make Peter directly responsible for him becoming the Green Goblin? I mean, the movie has Harry blame him anyway.
What did you do?
What you made me do.
I mean, come on, it's right there, and to me, that makes their story a bit more riveting. Sure, is it similar to Peter giving Kurt his father's equation, an equation that turns him into the lizard?
There you go.
Yeah, but also, that's Spider-Man, dude. He tries to do the right thing. In this theoretical case, he tries to save his best friend, his lost brother, and in doing so, creates his ultimate enemy. Sets the stage for his ultimate tragedy. You know what else they could have streamlined a bit and had hit that much harder by making Peter more liable? The death of Gwen Stacy. Writer-producer Alex Kurtzman said this.
It was very clear to us from the beginning, if Gwen was going to die, the entire movie was about her death. It wasn't going to be a random turn of plot at the end. Everything needed to be leading up to that. And also, most importantly at a story level, Peter could not become the person he is at the end of the movie without her death.
And he seems to mean that with the utmost sincerity. In fact, every single member of the cast and crew knows just how important it was to translate perhaps the greatest tragedy to ever befall a superhero.
I think it had other consequences in the comic book universe. Suddenly people knew what was at stake. They knew that terrible things could happen in the universe. It injected the possibility for trauma and danger that didn't exist before.
It was such a huge milestone in this comic and comics generally. I think it's a really bold choice and tragic, and I admire the choice.
Weirdly, I wanted to play her because she dies. I wanted to know what it was like to create a character that has that, to know from the very beginning about your ending. And Gwen obviously doesn't know that she's gonna die, but she's so surrounded by death throughout her short life.
And yes, what works, hell, I don't need to tell you what works about both Amazing Spider-Man movies. You already know. It's the moments that feel alive, the moments that you can tangibly feel this is the type of Spider-Man Peter Parker's story Marc Webb wanted to tell. The moments where it's clear that no amount of studio meddling can affect the palpable heart and soul everyone is putting in. Peter and Gwen, their scenes, their walks, their long soulful looks into each other's eyes, those moments cackle with electricity. They are rays of warm sunshine able to melt the coldest of hearts. You cannot help grin ear to ear at just how in love they seem, how connected, comfortable they are with one another. The kind of love that feels like you've known them your entire life. You should have known them your whole life because every moment without them is a moment wasted. The love that makes you want to fall in love even though you know it will hurt because the beauty, the warmth is more than worth the pain. Their relationship relationship across both films is unmatched. Everything else pales in comparison. It's nearly impossible to beat. I'm not here to have a hot take about that. I just wish that those moments came together more coherently, came together in a way that truly made the entire film feel like it was truly about the loss of Gwen Stacy. The problem is, like with everything else, she feels very much on the outskirts of Peter's journey. He barely tells her anything about his parents. They cut the one scene she had with Aunt May, and she only interacts with the villains before they become cartoonish archetypes once, both times riding an elevator, both times talking very directly about Peter.
You know, Spider-Man saved my life one time. But that's why he needs you. Right?
Oh, got it.
I think my problem with her death is that they cannot directly allow Peter to be the one responsible, even though most of the narrative is building to the fact that he should be. Remember what I was saying earlier? I think it's far more powerful if Peter selfishly is the one who allows, who needs her to be involved with him. She's moving forward with her life, and he's the one who's holding her back because he's entirely dependent on her. Not just as his perceived soulmate, but as his sole confidant. She's the only one who knows he's Spider-Man. She's the only one he can talk to, only one he has ever been able to talk to so openly, so vulnerably. This movie shows us that dependence, that need again and again. She has new friends. Peter watches them from afar. She has moved on and healed from her father's death, and Peter is still desperately clinging to a loss that happened a decade ago. He's so desperately clinging to the idea that they are fated to be together. He follows her around under the guise of keeping her safe, but even he admits that it's because
the closest I can get to still being with you.
For years, people have made fun of the fact he stalks her daily.
Sometimes more.
But honestly, guys, I wish they would commit to just how sad and fundamentally desperate Peter is for connection instead of tiptoeing that line. I get that they can't or don't want to make Peter so needy and unlikable that he begs her to stay with him in New York, but honestly, they should.
England? Really?
It makes perfect sense. This Peter's #1 character flaw is trying so obsessively, so frantically to fill the void that his parents' abandonment left him with. It's almost less brash and irresponsible than offering to leave his aunt, his city, and everything behind to go be with her.
In England, they got tons of crime, it seems.
Of course, Gwen does not have to say yes to Peter's theoretical pleas for her to stay in New York. She should not have to be as dependent on Peter as he is on her. She should, of course, want to be with the guy that she loves, but I'd much prefer if Peter is asking her to stay, asking her to make it work, and as soon as he does that, as soon as he makes that choice on that bridge, that very famous bridge, to me, the narrative in classic Spider-Man fashion should be about how, when Peter is selfish, even if it's for love, for the right reasons, for relatable reasons, for choices and desires that each and every single one of us would make and have made, bad things happen to the people he loves. But the story tries to directly absolve him by having Gwen say very boldly and loudly,
"This is my choice, okay? My choice."
And then showing us one final ghostly image of Captain Stacy before Electro in Real D 3D comes right at us. Gwen may say it's her choice, but by having said that, you are ignoring the fact that Peter's been dragging her down the entire movie. She may say it's her choice, but by doing that, you are falling into the cliche of selfless hero warns girlfriend that his life is dangerous, which by nature begins to absolve the relatable selfishness that is inherent to Peter Parker. The flip-flop, the tiptoe, I just don't know. What I do know is that the tension is masterful. Knowing it's going to happen, always having known that the twisted truth of these movies lie and how they make you fall so in love with Gwen Stacy, knowing that you know her fate. And that doesn't mean you don't hope with all your heart that they are forgiving enough to change that fate. That doesn't mean you don't hope these sweeping, grandiose shots don't end differently than the comics, differently for her. That doesn't mean you, just like Peter, don't want to do everything in your power to stop those rusted gears. The ever-looming ticking hand in the back of not just his brain, but yours. Because why can't we be selfish for once? Why can't we be able to savor those beautiful moments with the one we love? Why can't we stop the unstoppable if we just try hard enough? If we just try with everything we have, if we extend all of ourselves, reach out with every ounce of love and hope we have in us. Why can't we look into her eyes and tell her it's going to be okay? After everything we've suffered, everything we've been through, why can't we save her? This has always hit like a knife to the chest in so many ways. The choice to portray that moment, that reverberating sound effect of the life leaving her body followed by silence. It's the closest we've ever been to experiencing genuine shock and tragedy through the eyes of Peter Parker. And we want to believe there's a chance she could still come back. We want to believe so badly, comic fan or not, that Gwen Stacy does not have to die. You're okay. We want to believe that superheroes save people, can save everyone.
Stay with me, stay with me. Stay with me, stay with me. You stay with me.
We want to believe that if we love someone enough, love them with all we have, they will always live.
I get it.
Despite my problems with the movie, that moment is an all-timer. It had to be. Everyone from the cast to Marc Webb to the crew, hell, even Avi the Grandmaster himself knew how important, how devastating Gwen's loss needed to be.
Andrew, not having seen Emma for several days, walking in and discovering that moment without rehearsal, only surrendering to that moment as an actor, and I think it allowed him to reach a depth of performance that is very difficult to achieve, and it feels real.
The beauty, the care, it's forever one of the all-time great Spider-Man scenes. The tragedy is that it's surrounded by a film that certainly should have, that really could have been amazing. I love so much about the ending, about the third act in general, so many narrative ideas that are very powerful in concept but are left undercooked in what was released to the public. Peter's parents died in that plane crash. Now he, as Spider-Man, he can stop another boy's, many children's parents from suffering the same fate. But in this movie, Peter is unaware of that entirely. He's too busy making dubstep with Electro.
I hate this song!
The first movie did this exact same thing with so much more grace. Reuniting a boy with his father is the key crucial turn in that film, a turn that allows himself to be
Spider-Man.
Reuniting a boy with his dad, who will later go on to inspire the working men and women of New York to help him out at his lowest possible point. The crane swing still makes me cry, well up, and be ready to believe in heroes. The ending of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 hits similar beats that I absolutely adore in theory, emotional weight that I should feel so entirely. The somberness of Peter being stuck at her grave, being unable to let go as time speeds forward. I think the problems come in when all that genuinely great stuff is rushed along so they can give us what should have been a post-credit scene of Harry assembling the Sinister Six. I guess since they cut Peter going savage and rage-beating Goblin Jr., they needed to show the audience Harry is alive, but still, I think we never really get to feel the absence of Spider-Man. The fact that Gwen's death caused Peter to go into a hole of despair, unable to help anyone, especially himself. Beautiful montage aside, the movie speeds to the finish line and has news reports tell us that Spider-Man has been away for too long, rather than letting us really sit in that unshakable grief Peter must be experiencing. I have to mention the original deleted Richard Parker ending. You probably already know what I'm talking about, but the fact that originally Richard is revealed to be alive and well, in hiding, watching from afar, waiting for his perfect moment to come back and say,
"With great power comes great responsibility."
There's just no way, man. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I refuse. I mean, Uncle Ben's impact is already mostly ignored by Pete in this movie, but to bring back Absentee Daddy, to bring him back and give him the most iconic line, I refuse to believe it. I've seen the movie, I've seen the deleted scene 1,000 times, and I don't believe it's real. It's not real.
Who are you?
Also, if that was the original ending, having his dad give the speech about taking Gwen with him, keeping her memory alive through his actions, does that mean that the May scene and Gwen's speech were reshoots? If so, this might be one of the only times where you hear me say that I far prefer the reshoots. I far prefer Aunt May finally being able to openly connect to and talk to Peter about Ben, about the emptiness she must have felt for so long after he died, because now they both know what it's like to lose the one you believed you were going to spend the rest of your life with.
You throwing his stuff away?
No, God, no. I couldn't do that. It's part of me. I'm just finding a better place for it. I'm gonna take one last look and I'm gonna put it where it belongs.
I far prefer Gwen being the one, even in death, to be the soul of this Spider-Man, to be the one who tells Peter to become, to live as the very thing she was to him.
There will be days where you feel all alone, and that's when hope is needed most. No matter how buried it gets, or how lost you feel, you must promise me that you will hold on to hope.
We have to be greater than what we suffer. My wish for you is to become hope.
Hey, Spider-Man.
I love these final moments, man. Anytime you give Spider-Man, just like Superman, a scene with kids being brave enough to hope that their red and blue hero will give them the strength to keep fighting, the strength to keep on believing that the world can be better, I get emotional just talking about it. It's a beautiful ending, Goofy, Rhino, and all. Beautiful in craft, beautiful in its lovely summation of the character we love. No matter what threat we will face, no matter how bad it gets for us, characters like Spider-Man, like Peter Parker, will always be there to help us back on our feet no matter how low we feel. Always be there to save us from the darkness and give us, no matter what age we need his help, the courage to keep on trying. Rewatching The Amazing Spider-Man 2 for the first time in about 5 years, rewatching all the behind the scenes, I'm left with this emptiness, this sadness, more so than usual, this thought of all that could have been. You hear Marc Webb talk about what he planned to do, how he and the team had massive plans for Dane DeHaan's Harry.
Not only does Harry become a powerful physical adversary, what we'll learn in the third movie is just how crafty he is, how intelligent he is. That intellectual demeanor, that confidence is a really important part of why we cast Dane.
And even Chris Cooper's Norman.
But this is our cryogenic head case for Norman Osborn, so we can bring him back for the sequel.
And there's a mix of genuine exhaustion and genuine excitement in his voice. I'm sure the building of the universe was so very exhausting. I'm sure he would have loved to just focus on the humanity he so clearly cares about. But you have to remember, part of the reason why this movie exists, why it exists the way it does, is because this was Sony's BVS. This was their Iron Man 1. This was their first real attempt at building a connected universe of Spider-Man films with Andrew Garfield's Peter at the center.
I think we all said, let's build a universe correctly, and let's let the story keep evolving, and let's make sure each movie is a big emotional step for Peter, and that the bad guys have a reason to find each other and build this group of the Sinister Six over the course of 2 or 3 movies.
The philosophy I had for the end of the movie was war drums. I want there to be a revolution that's starting. I want us to walk out of the theater really curious to know what happens next, because that's the only thing really that's going to bring Spider-Man back, is that need to defend the village, and that village is about to be under siege. The terror that's around the corner, and the need for the hero to protect us.
Look through the leaked emails. They had plans, man. Long before the Suicide Squad was mainstream, they had Drew Goddard writing and directing a Dirty Dozen-style Sinister Six spin-off. They had Venom in the works, presumably also in Marc Webb's world. But then, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was released to the public, and it did not make nearly the splash they wanted it to. So much to the point that Amy Pascal wrote to Sam Raimi in November of 2014 asking him for guidance. So much that this lovely ending would be the last time Marc Webb would ever be involved with Spider-Man, the last time Andrew would get a solo movie, the last time we'd ever see this Peter Parker's world. Which is sad, man, because I truly don't think the Amazing Spider-Man franchise was beyond saving. I think just because they shot themselves in the foot so many times while making this one, they could have learned from that. Learned that what audiences truly care about deep down, even if they don't know they do, beneath the hype, beneath the barely visible Ock arms or Black Cat name drops, is the soul. The soul of Peter, of Gwen, of Aunt May, and Uncle Ben. They did not need to scrap the universe so we could get another Spider-Man fighting for his time in someone else's universe. They did not need to go back to zero and try to build a connected universe without Peter Parker, when they had a great Peter Parker right in front of them. A Peter Parker that the audience was allowed to fall in love with all over again, even if it was all too brief. I like to think there's a world, some kind of parallel universe, Universe, where they kept trying to make it work, where, just like the wall crawler, they got back up in the face of failure and found the hope to keep trying. I, like so many people, had a, like all memorable ones, beautifully complicated relationship with both these movies. And despite everything, despite all my self-indulgent, all too pretentious, annoying rambles, I'd love to see what Andrew, Dane, Emma, Sally, Shailene, and the entire cast thus far, and the entire cast yet to come, would have continued to bring to these characters. Despite everything, I believe that Marc Webb and his very talented team of craftsmen, of artists, still could have, should have, been given the grace of allowing their original work, the original cuts, to see the light of day. Been given the chance at redemption to continue on if they wanted to. I believe if they were given that chance, we could have, we almost did, bear witness to a Spider-Man story that we would all have the pleasure of looking back on with love. A story that we would all be able to call amazing.
What Spider-Man is about is service and about helping other people out. When you're a kid and you're at that age, you have to learn how to protect yourself. You know, that's why people put on capes and put on masks, is they want to feel what it's like to be powerful, because you need that in order to survive. There is something really empowering about that message to kids, and when they see that Spider-Man character, they feel both a sense of protection but also a sense of empowerment. That's the really wonderful thing about that character, and I think why it belongs in the world and why it's been embraced not just by kids but by parents, is because there's that message of empowerment, and it doesn't come without sacrifice. It doesn't come easy necessarily, but it is a message that's universal, and I think it's a message that's profound.
To participate in that kind of culture that touches so many people is incredibly humbling and exciting, and being able to create with this wonderful team of people stories and images and feelings that hopefully will touch people is an enormous responsibility, but is a blast. It is so much fun, and it's really exciting, and I feel incredibly lucky to have that opportunity.
Hey guys, I don't know if you can hear this in the background, but there's a goddamn thunderstorm tornado happening outside. I might not make it. This might be it for me. But before I go, I just want to thank CJ, that one doesn't count, for editing this video. This was a massive beast. You guys have been waiting for this for too long. If you haven't watched the Jason trailer, check it out. Daredevil Born Again video, hopefully soon, unless it's already out. Let me know what you think. Yo, don't forget to check out My Heritage by scanning the QR code or clicking that link. Use code TOP19 to get a DNA kit for just $19, plus that 30-day free trial, free ship, and tons of cool features like Ancient Origins and so much more.